Some movies do time travel right. Other movies do time travel wrong.
I'm from the future.
At least, logically speaking. This is not an artistic assessment. It's a metaphysical truth that most contemporary philosophers actually agree on. Regardless of whether time travel will ever be physically possible, the question we're going to consider is how it would work logically if it did work at all. And according to philosophers, the general rule is that it's okay to go back in time and cause what happened in the past. But it's not okay to change what happened in the past, because that leads to logical contradictions.
I don't want to talk about time travel, because if we start talking about it, then we're going to be here all day talking about it, making diagrams with straws.
It's a tricky distinction to understand, so let's look at some examples. In Back to the Future, there's an original version of the past, where Marty's parents meet because his dad gets hit by a car. But Marty goes back in time and saves his dad from the car, thereby preventing his parents from ever getting together. Let's follow this to its logical conclusion. Marty changing the past so that his parents never meet would mean that Marty is never born, which means that Marty never goes back in time and never saves his dad from the car, which means his parents do meet, which means that Marty does get born. So Marty McFly both does and does not get born. The logical impossibility at play here is called the grandfather paradox. The science fiction editor Hugo Gernsback proposed it in the 1920s. The movie addresses this impossibility by having Marty begin to fade out of existence. But in real life, logically impossible things don't fade. They just never happen. Some movies try to avoid these contradictions by having characters travel to parallel timelines instead of traveling within the same timeline.
Father.
I am not our father.
But strictly speaking, they're not time travel movies. They're parallel universe travel movies. And when you save the world by traveling to a parallel universe where the world is saved, the world still gets destroyed in the universe that you left.
What about the reality we left behind?
What about the reality where Hitler cured cancer, Morty? The answer is don't think about it.
So, how do you make a good time travel movie that doesn't cheat? In The Terminator, the past can and will only ever happen one way.
I'll be back.
John Connor sends Kyle Reese back into the past to save his mom, Sarah Connor. This leads to John being born, which ultimately leads to John sending Reese back in time to save Sarah, which leads to John being born, and so on. Yes, it's a loop, but each event in the loop causes the next event. No contradictions. In philosophy, this is called a closed causal loop, and you can find them everywhere in time travel plots. In the Doctor Who episode Blink, Sally gives the Doctor a transcript of a series of events that she witnessed so that he can go back into the past and cause them to happen.
People assume that time is a strict progression of cause to effect, but actually it's more like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
In The Prisoner of Azkaban, Harry Potter gets the confidence to save his past self by remembering how in his past he was saved by his future self, which is who he is now.
Expecto Patronum!
Closed causal loops are logically consistent, but they do contain their own philosophical conundrum. It's called the bootstrapping paradox. It's the question of what's the thing that began the causal loop in the first place? John Connor was born because of his own decision to send Kyle Reese back in time to save his mom. But where did that decision come from? Well, a chain of events that can be traced back to John Connor being born. But that came from older Connor's decision. So what's responsible for Connor's existence? The answer is he's a self-contained loop that came out of nowhere.
Not my mother, Todd.
If that seems weird to you, just think about the universe. What caused the universe to exist? The universe? Something outside of the universe? Philosophers call this the ex nihilo problem, and they've been struggling with it for millennia. So as far as time travel movies go, they're willing to give it a pass.
Hasta la vista, baby.